This channel does not promote or encourage any illegal activities. All contents provided by this channel is meant for educational purpose only.
September 1st, 1939, 4:45 a.m., the Polish town of WWII. Most of its 16,000 residents are still asleep. The first bomb falls without warning, shrieking howl that splits the pre-dawn darkness like a blade through cloth. Then another, and another. Within minutes, the entire town square erupts in flames. The 800-year-old All Saints Hospital, clearly marked with a red cross, takes a direct hit. Nurses scrambling to evacuate patients are crushed under collapsing masonry. The air fills with screaming dust, and the acrid stench of burning wood and flesh. This isn't a military target. There are no fortifications here, no barracks, no ammunition depots. This is a test. The German Luftwaffe is experimenting with terror bombing, seeing how quickly they can break civilian morale, how efficiently they can turn a living town into a graveyard. In less than 30 minutes, over 1,200 people are dead. The survivors wander through smoke-choked streets, faces blackened, clutching children and possessions that no longer matter. And across the entire 1,750-mile border between Germany and Poland, this scene is multiplying. At the exact same moment WWII burns, German artillery opens fire on the Polish garrison at Westerplatte, a tiny peninsula jutting into the harbor of Danzig. The pre-dreadnought battleship Schleswig-Holstein, supposedly on a courtesy visit, pivots its massive 11-inch guns and unleashes hell on the 182 Polish soldiers defending the ammunition depot there. Commander Henryk Saharski stands in the command bunker, feeling the earth convulse with each shell impact. He was told he'd need to hold for 12 hours, just long enough for reinforcements to arrive. He looks at his second in command, Captain Franciszek Dabrowski, and both men understand the same terrible truth. No one is coming. 30 miles south, near the town of Mokra, Polish cavalry commander Colonel Jan Karch hears the distant rumble of engines. Not the familiar growl of trucks or motorcycles, but something deeper, heavier, mechanical and relentless, like the breathing of some iron beast. Then he sees them, Panzer tanks, dozens of them, merging from the morning mist in disciplined columns, their treads chewing through farmland, their cannons swiveling with predatory precision. Behind them, waves of infantry in field grey, moving with the confidence of men who've already won. Karch's Volhynian Cavalry Brigade is one of Poland's elite units, proud, disciplined, battle-hardened, but they're equipped for a different kind of war. A war of maneuver and dash, of saber charges and lightning raids. Not this. Not industrial warfare condensed into a rolling apocalypse of steel and high explosives. He gives the order anyway. Prepare to engage. His men dismount. They're not fools. They won't charge tanks on horseback and take up defensive positions in the tree line. They have anti-tank rifles, a few pieces of artillery, and the kind of grim determination that comes from knowing your homeland is being invaded. The first panzers roll into range. The Polish gunners open fire, and for a moment, just a moment, it works. One tank slews to a halt, smoke pouring from its turret. Another throws a track and lurches sideways. The German infantry scatters, seeking cover, but then the Stukas arrive. You hear them before you see them, that banshee wail. The Jericho trumpets mounted on their landing gear, specifically designed to terrorize. They plunge from the sky in near-vertical dives, sirens screaming, and release their bombs with mechanical precision. The earth erupts in geysers of dirt and fire. Trees are shredded into splinters. Men are thrown through the air like ragdolls, and when the smoke clears, the panzers are still coming. This is Blitzkrieg, lightning war, a doctrine that erases the boundary between front line and rear echelon, between soldier and civilian, between battle and annihilation. It's combined arms warfare perfected into an art form: tanks, aircraft, artillery, and infantry moving in seamless coordination, punching through defensive lines before anyone can react, then racing deep into enemy territory to sever communications, encircle armies, and shatter morale. Poland's military planners anticipated a war. They'd spent years fortifying the border, training troops, stockpiling ammunition, but they anticipated the wrong war, one that would develop slowly, with clear front lines and time for allies to mobilize. Instead, they're facing something that feels less like warfare and more like a natural disaster. A hurricane with swastikas. In Warsaw, 180 miles from the border, President Ignacy Mościcki receives the first reports with disbelief. The numbers can't be right. Dozens of towns under attack simultaneously. Hundreds of aircraft, entire divisions breaking through in the first hours. His foreign minister, Joseph Beck, stares at the map as red markers multiply across it like a spreading infection. Have the British been notified? Mościcki asks. Yes, Mr. President. And the French? Yes. Will they honor the alliance? Beck's silence is answer enough. Back at the border, Polish soldiers are discovering what it means to fight the Wehrmacht in 1939. In the town of Tczew, a small garrison attempts to defend a critical railway bridge. They've mined the structure if they can blow it. They might slow the German advance, buy time for evacuation and reinforcement. But German commandos, disguised in Polish uniforms, infiltrated the town the night before. They cut the detonation wires. When the Polish engineers frantically twist the plunger, nothing happens. The panzers roll across the bridge unopposed. This is the other face of Blitzkrieg deception, sabotage, fifth columns, sowing chaos behind the lines. In multiple cities, ethnic German residents, the Volksdeutsche are rising up, attacking Polish officials, cutting phone lines, assassinating officers. Some are acting on orders from Berlin. Others are simply swept up in the madness, believing the propaganda that promised them liberation. The result is the same. Poland is being attacked from within and without simultaneously. Trust collapses, paranoia spreads. Commanders can't be sure if their orders are reaching their units, or if the messengers themselves are traitors. In the air, it's even worse. The Polish Air Force on paper, respectable, with nearly 400 aircraft is being annihilated on the ground. The Luftwaffe, having studied the mistakes of World War I, strikes not at enemy planes in the sky, but at their airfields, their hangars, their fuel depots. Entire squadrons are destroyed before their pilots can even reach their cockpits. The few Polish fighters that do get airborne face overwhelming odds. The PZLP-11 Poland's frontline fighter is a tough, maneuverable aircraft. It's also a biplane in an age of monoplanes, with a top speed of 240 miles per hour facing German Messerschmitt Bf-109s that can hit 350. It's like bringing a cavalry saber to a machine gun fight. By noon, less than 8 hours into the war, the German 4th Panzer Division has advanced over 20 miles into Polish territory. They've bypassed fortified positions entirely, simply racing around them and leaving them to be mopped up by follow-on infantry. The Polish defensive doctrine, built around holding prepared positions, is being rendered obsolete in real time, and the world is waking up to what's happening. In London, Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain receives an urgent telegram. His policy of appeasement to Munich Agreement, the promises of peace in our time, lies in ruins. He'd genuinely believed Hitler could be reasoned with, that territorial concessions would satisfy German ambitions. Now German bombs are falling on Polish hospitals. In Paris, French military commanders stare at intelligence reports and struggle to comprehend the speed of the German advance. The French army, the largest in Europe, the victors of 1918, has pledged to launch a major offensive against Germany within 2 weeks of any Polish invasion. But mobilization takes time. The machinery of war, once wound down, doesn't simply restart with the turn of a key. And deep in the hearts of French generals and politicians alike, there's a terrible question no one wants to voice. What if we can't stop them either? Back in WWII, now reduced to smoking rubble, a priest named Father Stanisław moves through the ruins, administering last rites to the dying. His church is gone, his congregation is scattered or dead, but he continues, because it's all he can do. He finds a young mother clutching a dead infant, her face expressionless with shock. Why, she asks him. Just that. Why, he has no answer. No one does, because this isn't a war in the old censor clash of armies over disputed territory. A chess match played with human pieces. This is something new. Something that will come to define the next 6 years of human history. This is total war. In Poland, caught between Nazi Germany and, though they don't know it yet, the Soviet Union waiting in the east, is about to become the first nation to experience its full horrific weight. As the sun sets on September 1, 1939, the Polish government begins preparing for the worst. Secret documents are being destroyed, gold reserves are being evacuated. Orders go out for a general mobilization, but the courier system is already breaking down, and entire divisions never receive the command. At Westerplatte, Commander Saharsky's garrison is surrounded, outnumbered 20-1, under constant bombardment that they will hold for 7 days. September 2, 1939, Krakow, Poland's ancient capital. The city wakes to chaos. Refugees are already flooding in from the West Farm families, with everything they own piled onto horse-drawn carts, their faces hollowed by exhaustion and terror. They speak in fragments, interrupted by sobs, painting a picture that seems too apocalyptic to be real. Towns erased in minutes, roads strafed by diving aircraft, columns of tanks stretching to the horizon. The city's military governor, General Mieczysław Boruta-Spichevich, faces an impossible calculation. Krakow sits barely 30 miles from the border. The Germans could be here in days, maybe hours. The city is indefensible. Its medieval walls charming tourist attractions, not military fortifications. But this is Krakow. 7 centuries of Polish history crystallized in stone and spirit. The royal castle on Wall Hill, where Polish kings were crowned. The Jagiellonian University, where Copernicus studied. St. Mary's Basilica, where a trumpeter has sounded the hedgenaw every hour for 600 years. The melody deliberately cut short to commemorate a 13th century watchman killed by a Totter arrow mid. How do you abandon that? How do you tell a people that their heritage is now a strategic liability? Boruta-Spichevich gives the order anyway. The city will be declared open surrendered without a fight to spare it from destruction. Military units are to withdraw east, toward the Vistula River, where theoretically new defensive lines are being prepared. The city's residents receive the news with stunned silence. Some weep, others begin packing. A few, mostly young men, ignore the evacuation order entirely and start building barricades anyway, believing that courage and improvisation might somehow make a difference. They don't understand yet. This war doesn't reward courage the way the old wars did. 200 miles north, the siege of Westerplatte enters its second day. Commander Saharsky's tiny garrison has already exceeded everyone's expectations, including their own. The German assault force, equipped with flamethrowers and supported by aerial bombardment, expected the position to fall within hours. Instead, they're taking casualties. The Polish defenders fight from reinforced concrete bunkers, connected by trenches and tunnels, popping up to fire and disappearing before German artillery can zero in. They've turned the entire peninsula into a killing ground, every approach covered by interlocking fields of fire. But they're running out of everything: ammunition, medical supplies, water, sleep. Captain Dabrowski moves through the positions, checking on his men. Most are very young conscripts who'd never fired a shot in anger before yesterday. Now they're hollow-eyed and trembling, faces blackened by smoke, uniforms shredded by shrapnel. One soldier, barely 20, is cradling a rifle with no ammunition left, rocking back and forth and whispering the Lord's Prayer on endless repeat. How long can we hold? Dabrowski asks Saharsky during a brief lull in the bombardment. Saharsky looks at the cratered landscape, the burning barracks, the makeshift cemetery where they've already buried 17 men. As long as we have to. That's not an answer. It's the only answer we have. They both know the mathematics are brutal. The Germans can replace their losses. Poland cannot. Every shell the defenders fire is one less they'll have tomorrow. Every wounded man is one they can't properly treat. Every meal they eat brings them closer to starvation. But surrender isn't tactical, it's symbolic. As long as Westerplatte holds, Poland is still fighting. The moment it falls, something intangible but vital will break in the Polish spirit, so they keep fighting. Meanwhile, in the skies over Poland, the Luftwaffe is flying sorties at a pace that seems almost impossible. Some pilots are making 5, 6, 7 flights per day, taking off, bombing a target, landing to refuel and rearm, and immediately taking off again. They face minimal opposition. Polish anti-aircraft fire is sporadic and poorly coordinated. Polish fighters, when they appear at all, are quickly swarmed by German formations. Lieutenant Stanisław Skolski, one of Poland's most talented fighter pilots, manages to shoot down a German bomber over Warsaw. It's a small victory, celebrated by cheering crowds below who desperately need anything to believe in. But Skolski knows the truth. He can see it from his cockpit. Warsaw is burning. Smoke columns rise from a dozen different neighborhoods. The roads leading east out of the city are clogged with civilians fleeing toward. Where is safety when the enemy moves faster than panic itself? He lands, refuels, and prepares to go back up. A ground crew member, a teenager who looks like he should be in school, asks him, "Are we winning, sir?" Skolski looks at the kid's earnest, hopeful face and can't bring himself to crush it. "We're fighting," he says. "That's what matters." It's a lie, but a necessary one. On the ground, the Polish army is attempting to execute a fighting retreat maneuver that's easy on paper and nightmarishly difficult in reality. The idea is simple. Units engage the enemy, inflict casualties, then withdraw in good order to the next defensive position. Repeat until you've traded space for time, allowing reserves to mobilize and allies to intervene. In practice, it's chaos. German panzers don't advance in neat lines. They probe for weaknesses, then exploit them with devastating speed. They bypass strong points and drive for command posts, supply depots, communication hubs. the soft tissue that makes an army function. Polish units find themselves cut off without realizing it, suddenly receiving orders from commanders who've already been captured or killed. Near the town of WWII, the Polish 20th Infantry Division attempts to hold a fortified line. They've got good positions, barbed wire, minefields, pre-sighted artillery. On paper, they should be able to hold for days. The Germans hit them with everything. Stukas dive-bomb the trenches, the screaming sirens drowning out the officers' shouts. Artillery pounds the positions into moonscapes. Then the panzers roll forward, and behind them waves of infantry with machine guns and grenades. The Poles fight back ferociously. Anti-tank guns knock out several panzers at close range. Infantry counterattacks, retake lost positions. For a few hours, it looks like they might actually stop the advance. Then German reconnaissance planes spot a gap in the Polish line just a quarter mile, stretched where units lost contact during the initial bombardment. A panzer company threads through it, then fans out behind the Polish positions. Suddenly, the defenders are being shot at from both directions. Supply lines are cut. Evacuation routes are blocked. The carefully prepared defensive line becomes a death trap. The division commander gives the order to retreat, but half his units never receive it. They fight on until they're overrun or forced to surrender, still believing reinforcements are coming, still thinking this is a battle they can win. That's a pattern that's repeating across the entire front. Brave men, good positions, reasonable tactics all rendered meaningless by the speed and coordination of the German advance. In Warsaw, Marshal Edward Rydzyk, Poland's commander-in-chief, stares at maps that become obsolete by the hour. Every report brings worse news. The Poznań army is falling back. The D army is encircled. The Krakow army is in headlong retreat. German spearheads are already 50, 60, 70 miles into Polish territory. Where are our reserves? He demands. His chief of staff, a career officer who looks like he's aged 10 years in 2 days, spreads his hands helplessly. Still mobilizing, sir. The call-up has been ... disrupted. That's a euphemism. The truth is that German commandos and fifth columnists have systematically sabotaged Poland's mobilization. Phone lines cut, railway bridges destroyed, mobilization notices intercepted. Entire reserve units report to assembly points that no longer exist. Having been captured by German advance forces the day before, Poland had a plan. It was a good plan, developed by competent officers who'd studied modern warfare, but it assumed they'd have time to mobilize fully, time for allies to enter the war, time for the international community to respond. Instead, they got 36 hours of warning, less time than it takes to properly deploy a single division before the hammer fell. What about the British? Rydzyk asks. The French, both governments have delivered formal protests to Germany. Protests? The word tastes like ash. What about their armies? The French are considering their options. The British are debating in Parliament. Debating. Rydzyk wants to laugh or scream or both. Poland's allies have spent months assuring them that any German aggression would be met with immediate, overwhelming force. Now German tanks are racing toward Warsaw, and Britain and France are debating. He thinks about the Anglo-Polish military alliance, signed just days ago with such fanfare, about the solemn promises that Poland would never stand alone, about his own government's decision to reject German demands, confident that the Western democracies would support them. And he realizes, with sickening clarity, that Poland is expendable, a useful buffer state, a moral fig leaf that allows Britain and France to claim they opposed Nazi aggression while doing nothing to actually stop it. But he can't say any of this. He's the commander-in-chief. Men are dying under his orders. He has to project confidence, competence, control. Issue orders for a general withdrawal to the Vistula line, he says. We'll establish a new defensive position there, deeper into Poland, away from the border. Better supply lines, more time to organize. His staff officers nod and hurry to implement the order, grateful to have anything concrete to do. But Rydzyk knows the truth. The Vistula line is another illusion, another temporary fix, another position that will crumble the moment German panzers test it. Poland isn't losing battles, it's losing the war, and it's only the second day. Back at Westerplatte, night falls on September 2nd. The bombardment continues. German guns firing on fixed schedules, denying the defenders rest. Saharsky walks the perimeter one last time, checking positions, encouraging men who are beyond encouragement. He finds one soldier, a boy from a farm outside Gdynia, sitting in a shell crater, staring at nothing. "What's your name?" Saharsky asks. "Kowalski, sir. Private Kowalski." "Are you hurt?" "Kowalski. No, sir. Just thinking." About what? The boy looks up at him, and in his eyes Saharsky sees something worse than fear. He sees understanding. My family's farm is 20 kilometers from here, sir. I was wondering if it's still there, or if it's like this now. Saharsky has no answer. He grips the boy's shoulder, holds it for a moment, then moves on. Behind him, Private Kowalski picks up his rifle and returns to his position, because what else is there to do? Across Poland, a million stories like this are unfolding. Ordinary people caught in extraordinary horror, making small choices that feel insignificant but somehow, collectively, define who they are. And the Germans keep coming. September 10th, 1939, the Bizera River, west of Warsaw. General Tadeusz Kotrezeba stands on a hillside, watching his army prepare for something audacious and possibly suicidal. 9 days into the invasion, Poland's military situation has deteriorated from dire to catastrophic. German spearheads are already probing Warsaw's outskirts. The corridor that connected Poland to the Baltic Sea, the strip of land that started this whole nightmare, has been cut and sealed. Entire armies have been encircled, their commanders reduced to sending desperate radio messages that grow fainter each day until they stop entirely. But Kutuziba's Poznań army, 40,000 men strong, remains mostly intact. And more importantly, it's positioned on the flank of the German thrust toward Warsaw. This is madness, his chief of staff mutters, studying the map. We're supposed to be withdrawing, consolidating, not attacking. Withdrawing to where? Kotrezeba asks. The Vistula line is already collapsing. If we keep retreating, we'll just die tired. At least this way, we'll die doing something. The plan is desperate but brilliant. While German forces focus on Warsaw, Kotrezeba will strike south across the Bizera River, slamming into the exposed flank of the German 8th Army. If it works, if they can break through and link up with other Polish forces, they might achieve something unprecedented. A successful counteroffensive against the Wehrmacht. If it fails, they'll be destroyed. But destruction is coming anyway, so why not make it cost something? On September 9th, the attack begins. Polish infantry, supported by cavalry and what little artillery they have left, hit the German positions like a thunderbolt. The Germans, expecting only scattered resistance, are caught completely off guard. Entire companies are overrun. Supply columns are ambushed and destroyed. For the first time since the invasion began, it's German soldiers who are retreating in confusion. German officers who are radioing frantically for reinforcements. The Battle of Bizera, Poland's largest counterattack of the entire campaign, rages for 3 days. And for those 3 days, against all odds and expectations, it's working. Polish forces advance 15 miles. They capture German equipment, take prisoners, liberate towns that had already been occupied. In Warsaw, news of the counteroffensive spreads like wildfire. People weep with relief and pride. Maybe the war isn't lost after all, maybe there's still hope. But Kotrezeba knows better. He can see the intelligence reports. German reinforcements are already being redirected toward the Bizera. Luftwaffe bombers, previously tasked with hitting Warsaw, are being retasked to pound his positions. The window of opportunity is closing with terrifying speed. How long until we link up with the Modlin army? He asks. 36 hours, sir, maybe less. And how long until the Germans bring their full weight against us? His chief of staff doesn't answer. He doesn't need to. The counteroffensive, which started as Poland's last gasp of strategic agency, is about to become its largest encirclement battle. While Kutuziba's army fights for its life on the Bizera, something else is happening. Something that will transform Poland's desperate struggle into an existential nightmare. September 17, 1939. The Polish-Soviet border. 2 weeks into the war. Polish border guards stationed in the eastern provinces have been hearing rumors for days. Troop movements on the Soviet side, tank columns assembling, aircraft being moved to forward airfields, but they've been told not to worry. The Soviet Union, while not exactly friendly, has a non-aggression pact with Poland. They wouldn't attack. Not while Poland is already fighting for survival against Germany. At 3 a.m., Soviet forces cross the border in overwhelming strength. Over 800,000 troops, thousands of tanks, waves of aircraft. They pour across the entire eastern frontier, from Lithuania in the north to Romania in the south, advancing on a front over 1,000 miles long. There is no declaration of war, no ultimatum, just invasion. The Polish defenders, mostly second-line troops, reservists, border guards, are stunned into paralysis. Many don't even resist at first, thinking there must be some mistake. Surely the Soviets are coming to help fight the Germans. An alliance against Hitler. They learn the truth quickly. Soviet troops disarm Polish units, often at gunpoint. Officers who protest are shot or arrested. Civilians who resist are The Red Army moves with the same brutal efficiency as the Wehrmacht, but with an added layer of ideological fervor. This isn't just conquest, it's liberation, or so the Soviet propaganda claims. Liberation from the oppressive Polish state. Liberation for the Ukrainian and Belarusian minorities. The reality is simpler and uglier. Stalin and Hitler have divided Poland between them. The Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact, signed in August, contained secret protocols that carved Eastern Europe into spheres of influence. Germany gets Western Poland. The Soviet Union gets Eastern Poland. The country itself, its people, its culture, its very existence is simply erased from the map. In Warsaw, the news arrives like a death sentence. Marshal Ryd-Śmigły receives the reports and has to sit down, his legs suddenly unable to support him. Both sides. He whispers, "We're being attacked from both sides." His staff stands in horrified silence. What do you even call this? It's beyond disaster, beyond catastrophe. Poland is being dismembered by the two most powerful totalitarian states in Europe, simultaneously, with coordinated precision. The government faces an impossible choice. They can't fight both Germany and the Soviet Union. They barely have enough forces left to fight Germany alone. If they order their eastern armies to resist the Soviets, they'll be annihilated. If they order them to retreat west, they'll be pushed directly into German guns. There's only one option left: evacuation. The government, the military high command, the gold reserves, the national archives, everything that can be saved must be moved out of Poland entirely, to Romania, where at least there's hope of continuing the struggle from exile. It's not surrender. Poland will never surrender, but it's an acknowledgement that the homeland itself is now a killing floor, and anyone who wants to keep fighting must do it elsewhere. President Mścicki makes the announcement himself, his voice cracking over the radio. The defense of Warsaw continues, but the government must preserve itself to continue the struggle. We have not abandoned you, we will never abandon you. Poland lives, as long as we live. For the citizens listening, it sounds like exactly what it is. Goodbye. Back on the Bzira, General Kutaziba's counteroffensive has collapsed into a desperate breakout attempt. The Germans have sealed the pocket. Artillery pounds the Polish positions day and night. Stukas dive bomb any concentration of troops. Panzer units circle the perimeter, shooting anything that moves. Kutaziba's 40,000 men are now trapped in an ever-shrinking pocket of territory, running out of ammunition, food, and hope. Some units attempt to break through the German lines. A few succeed, their survivors stumbling into Warsaw with tales of horror that make the city's defenders wonder if continued resistance is courage or suicide. Most don't make it. On September 18th, Kutaziba gives the order to disperse. It's no longer an army, it's thousands of desperate men trying to survive, trying to reach Warsaw or escape to Romania, or just hide in the forests until this nightmare ends. Many are captured, some are killed, a handful make it through. Kutaziba himself, after destroying his unit colors to keep them from German hands, surrenders on September 19th. He'll spend the next 6 years in German POW camps, replaying those 3 days in September when Polish arms achieved what everyone said was impossibly successful. Counterattack against the Wehrmacht. For 3 days, Poland showed the world it could still bite back. Then reality crushed it. In the small towns and villages of eastern Poland, the Soviet invasion brings a different kind of terror. The Germans are brutal but comprehensible. They're an invading army. They want conquest. The Soviets are something else, something that operates according to an alien logic of class warfare and ideological purity. Polish officers are systematically separated from their men and taken away to where no one says. Landowners, priests, teachers, civil servants, anyone who represents the old order is arrested. Families are rounded up in the middle of the night and loaded onto cattle cars heading east into the Soviet Union. It's ethnic cleansing disguised as revolution. A Polish cavalryman named Witold, separated from his unit during the Soviet invasion, witnesses Soviet troops entering his hometown of Grodno. He watches from a hidden position as they line up the town's mayor, the priest, and 3 local businessmen against the wall of the church. There's no trial, no charges read. Just a Soviet political officer reading from a prepared statement about enemies of the people and class traitors. Then gunfire. Witold stays hidden until nightfall, then slips away, heading west, toward Warsaw. Toward the only place left where Poland still exists as anything more than a memory. In the capital, the siege has begun in earnest. German artillery, including massive railway guns that fire shells the size of automobiles, pounds the city from positions just beyond its suburbs. The Luftwaffe flies, bombing runs that turn entire neighborhoods into infernos. Civilians huddle in basements and cellars, emerging during lulls to search for food, water, and loved ones. But Warsaw refuses to fall. Mayor Stefan Staszewski has transformed the city into a fortress of desperation. Barricades block every major street. Anti-tank ditches scar the parks. Men, women, and teenagers dig trenches and prepare Molotov cocktails with shaking hands. There are no reinforcements coming, no relief columns racing to the rescue. Everyone knows this. They fight anyway. Why? Because surrender means acknowledging that Poland is finished. That everything their parents and grandparents fought for, independence, dignity, the right to exist, was for nothing. That German tanks can simply roll over centuries of history and culture without consequence. So they fight. Not because they can win, but because not fighting means accepting the unacceptable. On September 20th, a German envoy approaches Warsaw under a flag of truce. He carries an ultimatum: surrender within 24 hours, or the city will be reduced to rubble. Civilian casualties are regrettable, but inevitable. This is the defender's choice: save lives by surrendering, or condemn the population to annihilation through stubbornness. The message is clear: we're being reasonable, you're being fanatics, the blood is on your hands. Staszewski rejects the ultimatum without even consulting the military command. His response is broadcast over every radio still working in Warsaw: we shall defend ourselves to the last ditch. We are fighting for freedom, not only for Poland's but for yours too. It's a message as much for the world as for Warsaw's citizens. A reminder that this isn't just Poland's war, that today it's Warsaw burning, but tomorrow it might be Paris, or London, or anywhere that dares to stand against totalitarian conquest. In Britain and France, the message is heard, noted, filed away, and then those governments continue debating what, if anything, they should actually do about it. The 24-hour deadline expires. German artillery opens fire with every gun they have. Warsaw burns. September 25, 1939. Warsaw, 3:00 p.m. The sky turns black. Not with clouds or smoke, though there's plenty of both, but with aircraft. Over 400 German bombers, flying in waves so dense they blot out the sun. Heinkel He-111s, Dornier Dus-17s, Junkers, Ruati-7, Stukas, every available aircraft in the Luftwaffe's inventory, all converging on a single target. This is Luftangriff auf Warsaw, terror bombing of Warsaw. The largest concentrated air attack in history up to this point. The bombs fall like rain, high explosive ordnance, cratering streets and collapsing buildings, incendiaries starting fires that merge into a single howling inferno, consuming entire city blocks. The sound is beyond comprehension, a continuous rolling thunder that makes the earth shake and turns the air itself into a physical force that slams against your chest. In a basement shelter beneath what used to be an apartment building on Marszałkowska Street, a family huddles together. The father, Pan Kowalskino, relation to the young soldier at Westerplatte, his arms around his wife and 2 children, as the building above them disintegrates. Dust and plaster rain down from the ceiling. A support beam cracks with a sound like a gunshot. His daughter, maybe 8 years old, looks up at him with eyes too old for her face. "Papa, are we going to die?" He wants to lie. To tell her everything will be fine, that the bombs will stop, that help is coming, but he's exhausted from days of digging trenches and fighting fires and carrying wounded neighbors to overwhelmed hospitals. He's out of comforting lies. "I don't know, Cockney," he says, "but we're together. That's what matters." The building above them collapses entirely. For a moment the world is nothing but noise and darkness and the certainty of death. Then silence. They're alive, trapped, but alive. Buried under tons of rubble with maybe enough air for a few hours. Pan Kowalski begins clawing at the debris with his bare hands, knowing it's futile, doing it anyway because the alternative is sitting still and waiting to suffocate. Stories like this are unfolding across Warsaw in the thousands, hundreds of thousands. The city's population, over 1 million people, is being subjected to industrial-scale terror, a deliberate attempt to break their will through sheer overwhelming violence. The water system is destroyed. Gas mains rupture and explode. Power lines snap and whip through the streets like electrified serpents. The few remaining hospitals are overwhelmed with casualties, crushed limbs, punctured lungs, burns covering entire bodies, children crying for parents who will never answer. And through it all, the defense continues. On the city's western perimeter, where German infantry has been probing for weak points, Polish soldiers fight from improvised positions, overturned trams, sandbag barricades, blown-out storefronts. They're a mixture of regular army reservists called up too late to reach their units, police officers, university students, and civilian volunteers who picked up rifles from the dead. Lieutenant Joseph Kozlovsky, a career officer who should be commanding a company in an organized army, instead leads a motley collection of 40 men defending a critical intersection. Half of them have never fired a gun before last week. They're armed with a chaotic mix of weapons, polished rifles, captured German Mausers, hunting shotguns, even a few ancient weapons from the 1920s. They're coming again, someone shouts. Through the smoke, Kozlovsky sees them, German infantry advancing in formation, supported by a Panzer IV that's been pounding their position for the last hour. He has exactly 3 anti-tank rifles left, and ammunition for maybe another 20 minutes of sustained fire. Hold until they're close, he orders. Make every shot count. The Germans approach with the confidence of men who know they've already won. This is just cleanup, mopping up the last fanatics too stupid to surrender. Then the Poles open fire. The lead German soldiers go down. The rest scatter, seeking cover. The Panzer's turret swivels, searching for targets. One of Kozlovsky's anti-tank gunners, a teenager named Andrei who worked in a bookshop 2 weeks ago, lines up his shot with steady hands and fires. The round punches through the tank's thinner side armor. Smoke begins pouring from the hatches. The crew bails out, stumbling away from their dying vehicle. Cease fire, Kozlovsky shouts. No point wasting ammunition on men who are already running. They've bought maybe another hour of Warsaw's life. And across the city, in 1,000 different positions, other defenders are making the same calculation, trading their lives for minutes, hours, days, not because they believe reinforcements are coming, not because they think Poland can still win, because surrender is unthinkable. At City Hall, or what remains of it after multiple direct hits, Maya Stasivsky coordinates the defense. From a basement command post lit by flickering candles and powered by a single failing generator, maps spread across a table show the shrinking perimeter. Red marks indicate positions lost. Blue marks indicate positions still held. There's more red than blue. How many casualties today? He asks his assistant. Unknown, sir. The hospitals have stopped counting. They're just trying to keep people alive. Food situation, 3 days, maybe 4 if we ration further. Water. The main pumping stations are destroyed. We're using wells and the river, but it's contaminated. Dysentery is spreading. Stasivsky closes his eyes. The mathematics of siege warfare are brutally simple. You can endure only as long as you have supplies and the will to fight. Warsaw is running out of the former, but somehow, impossibly, the latter remains intact. A radio operator interrupts. Sir, we're receiving a transmission from London, the BBC. The British have been broadcasting news and messages to occupied Europe, one of the few ways Poland can still communicate with the outside world. Stasivsky listens as the announcer's crisp British accent cuts through the static. Reports from Warsaw indicate the Polish capital continues to resist despite overwhelming odds. The courage of the Polish people has inspired admiration throughout the civilized world. Prime Minister Chamberlain today called the defense of Warsaw a testament to the indomitable spirit of a free people. Admiration, spirit, testament, words, just words. No mention of British or French troops marching to Poland's aid. No reports of Allied bombers hitting German positions. No indication that the guarantee of Polish independence means anything more than nice speeches delivered safely from London. Stasivsky turns off the radio. Get me a direct line to our remaining artillery positions, he says. If we're going to die, we'll die fighting, not listening to foreigners praise our corpses. In the city's hospitals now little more than butcher shops that happen to have doctors' nurses work without anesthesia, without proper tools, often without hope. Dr. Anna Broad, a surgeon who specialized in routine procedures before the war, now performs amputations by lamplight, using vodka as disinfectant and leather belts for patients to bite down on. A man is carried in, his legs pulverized by a collapsing building. He's conscious, which makes it worse. He knows what's coming. Will I walk again? He asks. Dr. Broad looks at the mangled flesh and shattered bone. No, she says, because lies don't help anyone anymore. But you'll live, and right now, that's winning. She operates while bombs fall outside. The building shakes. Dust drifts down from the ceiling. A nurse holds a lamp steady even as her hands tremble from exhaustion. They save the man's life or at least postpone his death, and move immediately to the next patient. There are always more patients. On September 26th, the bombardment intensifies further. The Germans have brought up their heaviest artillery, including massive 210mm howitzers that fire shells weighing over 300 pounds. Each impact creates a crater the size of a house. Buildings that have stood for centuries simply disappear. The historic old town with its medieval architecture, its cobblestone streets, its churches and palaces being systematically erased. Centuries of culture reduced to rubble in hours. But still Warsaw fights. German commanders, watching from their forward positions, can't understand it. The city is beaten. It has no chance of relief. Its population is starving and dying. By every rational calculation, they should surrender. General Johannes Blaskowitz, commanding the German 8th Army besieging the city, sends another ultimatum. Further resistance is senseless and will only bring additional suffering to the civilian population. I appeal to your reason and humanity. Surrender now and save your city from total destruction. The appeal lands on Stasivsky's desk. He reads it, crumples it up, and throws it in the corner. Draft a response. He tells his assistant, tell them Warsaw will fall when there's no one left to defend it. Not before, but even defiance has its limits. By September 27th, the city is dying. Not just its buildings, but its people. Starvation, disease, wounds, shock. The accumulated horror of 4 weeks of war and nearly a week of siege is breaking the population's physical capacity to endure. People collapse in the streets and don't get up. Entire families succumb to dysentery in flooded basements. The wounded die not from their injuries, but from infections that a week ago would have been easily treatable. The military situation is equally hopeless. Ammunition is nearly gone. Many positions are down to a few rounds per rifle. Some defenders are throwing bricks and bottles at attacking Germans. Medieval tactics in a modern war. Lieutenant Kozlowski's position finally falls on the morning of the 27th. A German assault, supported by flamethrowers, overruns his barricade. He and 3 survivors retreat through the ruins, carrying their wounded, heading deeper into the shrinking perimeter. They pass a church that's still somehow standing, its walls pockmarked by shrapnel but its spire intact. A priest stands in the doorway, offering communion to soldiers as they pass. Some stop, some don't. All of them have the same hollow-eyed look. Men who've seen too much, endured too much, lost too much. Is there any hope, Father? One soldier asks. The priest looks at the burning city, the smoke-darkened sky, the endless columns of refugees with nowhere left to flee. Hope, he says. We're still breathing, aren't we? That's all the hope we need. It's not enough, but it's all they have. That evening, the military command holds a final meeting. General Julius Romil, commanding Warsaw's garrison, lays out the facts with brutal honesty. We have ammunition for perhaps 1 more day of fighting, 2 if we're lucky. Our casualties are catastrophic. The civilian population is on the verge of complete collapse. We cannot hold. Then what do you propose? Mayor Starosky asks. Surrender with terms. We've fought honorably. No one can say otherwise. But continuing will only mean more death for no gain. The room falls silent. Everyone knows he's right. Everyone also knows what surrender means: occupation, oppression, the end of Polish sovereignty, the death of everything they've been fighting for. Stasivsky speaks slowly, choosing his words carefully. If we surrender, do you believe the Germans will treat our population with mercy? Rommel doesn't answer immediately. He's seen what the Wehrmacht does to captured cities. He knows about the massacres in smaller towns, the summary executions, the systematic brutality. No, he finally says, but at least they'll be alive to suffer it. Then we've fought for nothing. We've fought for 27 days. Against impossible odds. History will remember that, but history is written by the living, and if we don't surrender, there won't be anyone left to remember anything. It's the hardest truth anyone has spoken since the invasion began, and it's the truth that finally breaks Warsaw's will. On September 27, 1939, after 27 days of resistance, Warsaw agrees to surrender. The announcement goes out over the remaining radio stations. Across the city, defenders hear the news with reactions ranging from relief to rage to numb acceptance. Some weep. Some smash their rifles rather than hand them to the Germans. Some simply sit down and stare at nothing, too exhausted for emotion. Pan Kowalski and his family, pulled from the rubble by rescue workers, emerge to find their neighborhood unrecognizable. Every building damaged or destroyed, bodies still buried in the ruins, the living wandering like ghosts through a landscape that looks like the end of the world. His daughter tugs at his sleeve. Papa, did we win? He looks at the shattered city, the German troops already moving into position to occupy it, the Polish flag being lowered from City Hall. We survived, he says. Sometimes that's the same thing. It's not, but it's the best answer he has.